Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to the Shabbat Evening Service of Temple Emeth in Teaneck, New Jersey. It is my pleasure to welcome you here into the Rabbi Louis J. Siegel Sanctuary at Temple Emeth in Teaneck. I'd like to share a couple of notes with you before we begin our service. First of all, if you have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah, our Siddur at home, now is a perfect time to bring it to your computer or your screen so that you can follow along as we offer the prayers and songs of our service this evening. If you don't have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah available to you, then you can access one in flipbook format by going to our live stream page. If you scroll down just a bit, there's a section that says to access the Siddur, and then there's a link to Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat weekdays and festivals. It's probably better if you can do that on a second device, but however you can access the prayer book, it's going to work to your advantage. You'll be able to follow along, and the service will be much more meaningful to you. Also, we strive to create bonds of virtual community by posting a greeting in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. So now is a perfect time to wish your fellow worshipers Shabbat Shalom. You could identify yourself with your name or your location, and that way you will have a connection with others watching our service, and they will have a connection with you. Our service begins with the lighting of our Shabbat candles. We were hoping that Temple member Stuart May could join us remotely from his home using his computer and light the candles from a distance, but that we could all see it together. Unfortunately, technical difficulties have gotten the better of that plan, and so it is my honor to light the candles this evening in Stuart's place. I invite you to turn to pages 120 and 121 as we prepare for the lighting of the Shabbat candles. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Our service continues now with our Shabbat Evening Kaddish, which is found in Mishkan Tefillah on page 123. To lead us in Kaddish, joining us from her home, is Karen Wertheimer. So we'll turn on Karen's camera, and Karen will begin the Kaddish with an opening reading and then continue with the first line of the blessing.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, Sovereign of the universe, who, finding favor with us, sanctified us with mitzvot. In love and favor, you made the holy Shabbat our heritage, as a reminder of the work of creation. As first among our sacred days, it recalls the exodus from Egypt. You chose us and set us apart from the peoples. In love and favor, you have given us your holy Shabbat as an inheritance. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'rei peri hagofen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam v'rei peri hagofen.
L'chaim. We turn now in our Sidurim to page 127 as we find an English reading to help us prepare for the act of prayer on Shabbat. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We turn the page now where we find our opening song, Yedid Nefesh, found in Mishkan Tefillah on page 128. Please join us in singing Yedid Nefesh. We turn now in Mishkan Tefillah to page 143, where we find an excerpt from the book of Genesis. It is placed here in our service to remind us that a sacred space can be created anywhere. It's a powerful lesson in this time of pandemic when we must turn our homes into a mikdash ma'at, a miniature sacred space. But it is a tradition that goes back all the way to our patriarch Jacob, who alone for the first time has an encounter with God and understands that he is in Beit El, the house of God. And Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. Coming upon a certain place, he passed the night there, for the sun was setting. Taking one of the stones of the place, he made it his headrest as he lay down in that place. He dreamed, and lo, a ladder was set on the ground with its top reaching to heaven, and lo, angels of God going up and coming down on it. And lo, Adonai stood up above it and said, I, Adonai, am the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. The land on which you are lying I will give to you and to your descendants. And your descendants shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out to the west and the east and the north and the south. Through you and your descendants all the families of the earth shall find blessing. And here I am with you. I will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this soil. I will not let go of you as long as I have yet to do what I have promised you. Waking from his sleep, Jacob said, "Truly Adonai is in this place, and I did not know it." He was awestruck and said, "How awe-inspiring is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gateway to heaven." We rise for the Baruch Hu, page 146. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim, uvitfuna meshanei itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim b'mishmorotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uben layla Adonai tzvaot shemo. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch Elenu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Laed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטובות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We now turn in Mishkan Tefillah to page 157, where we find a responsive reading in English in the middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace. Give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
ונאמר כבד אדוני את יעקב, גלומר חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גל ישראל.
We turn to page 161 as we offer a prayer that asks for God's protection. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שבי שבת, כולם ישבעו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשת שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת.
The tefillah is found on page 164. As we enter into tefillah, I offer these words. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Please rise for the tefillah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Kunei Akol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevi Geula libnei b'neihem, l'man Shemo be'avah, Melech Ozer, Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Michayei kol atarav le'oshia, Marid ha'atal, Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechayei kol berachamim rabim, Samech noflim v'rofech olim, Umatir v'asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha bagvurot, Umido melech, Melech memit, Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'nemanata lachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh akol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, Ukdoshim chol yom yalalucha sela, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. We turn now in our Siddurim to page 173. Disturb us, Adonai. Ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai. Deny to us the false Shabbat which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of the living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We turn now to page 179, where we find a prayer for peace. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, ba'shalom. We pause for a moment for Tfilat Halev, a moment to offer to God the prayer of our hearts. Inspirational readings for this time are found on pages 180 and 181.
tasim leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata melech adon l'chol hashalom. Ki ata melech adon l'chol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
At this time, our thoughts turn to those in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. Our thoughts turn to the many injured this morning in a stampede in Israel at Mount Meron. I will speak more about that a little bit later in our service, but 45 were killed and dozens were injured. At this time, we pray for the injured that they may find speedy healing, as we think as well of the names of the loved ones of our congregation and those we think of whose names will appear on the screen. We turn in Mishkan Tefillah to page 371, and we join in singing the Mishaberach.
The ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikol bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Our service continues now with the Elenu, which is found in your Siddur on page 586 at the bottom of the page. Please rise for the Elenu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגר עלינו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו שנאמר וידוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated. In a moment, we will recite the Mourner's Kaddish, and as we do, we call to mind those for whom we are in the Shloshim 30-day period of mourning. Angela Shainman, Nanette Badian, a member of Temple Emeth, Elenu, mother of Peter Noor, and Joseph Pollock, a member of Temple Emeth and husband of Elaine Pollock. We remember as well those whose yahrzeits occurred this week: Bob Aronson, Carol Alpiner, Harry Blitz, Carol Brill, Carrie Butler, Trudy Chaikin, Elizabeth Dunsey, Sam Feldman, Arthur Freeman, Lillian Gates, Edith Goldstein, Louis Goldstein, Ruth Gottschall, Hermine Greenbaum, Sadie Hopman, Arthur R. Jacobs, Roberta Kapeloff, Beverly Z. Katz, Fred Koopman, Cynthia Curer, Lillian Lashinsky, Beatrice Mogerman, Hedwig Nam, Pearl Obit, Irving Pape, Henry Price, Carmen Radecki Breitkopf, Sarah S. Rappaport, Joan Rolfe, Mark Rosenberg, Dorothy Rosenzweig, Harry Rosenzweig, Max Sidunsky, Joan Seiden, Edward Shapiro, Seymour E. Silberman, Celia Seiner, Max Straussman, Abraham Vatsky, Henry N. Weiss, Harry Yallis, and Charles Yaskowitz. And we remember the names of 6 of the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust: Richard Reich of Czechoslovakia, age 67, Meyer Pearl of Hungary, age 49, Esther Galper of the Soviet Union, age 43, Idel Valler of the Soviet Union, age 47, Laser Valler of the Soviet Union, age 53, and Hanna Gorochovsky of the Soviet Union, age 43. Vayidom Aharon, and Aaron was silent. Aaron's 2 sons, Nadav and Avihu, worshipped God. Their methods were not conventional, but they were in God's holy space when fire leapt from their fire pans and consumed them. Moses tried to console his brother, but Aaron's response was silence. Looking at the tragedy on Mount Meron in Israel today, I find myself speechless. A stampede at a religious gathering to mark Lag BaOmer led to the deaths of at least 45 people and left many dozens more injured. Devout members of the Jewish people had traveled to a holy space to celebrate the day on which a plague killing Rabbi Akiva's students had ceased. They were there to celebrate how fear and oppression can be lifted. They were there to celebrate life. And instead, the plague of panic struck and killed 45 of our Jewish brothers and sisters, some of them children. The site at Mount Meron honors the Talmudic sage Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. When we first went into lockdown last year, I told his story at Torah study, for he and his son hid from the Roman authorities in a cave in a kind of quarantine for 12 years. When he emerged, he saw that his standards were no longer the standards of society. Rather than studying Torah, his fellow Jews were doing everyday tasks such as plowing and sewing. This lack of attention to Torah so upset him that he released an uncontrollable superhuman power, killing those in his sight. Upon seeing this wanton destruction, God commanded him back into the cave for another 12 months. What stands out to me about this story at this moment is God's exclamation against Rabbi Shimon. In that moment, a divine voice went forth and said, "Have you come out to destroy my world? Return to your cave." One can only be a sage among the Jewish people, the voice is saying, when one recognizes and understands that destruction is never the correct response to anger or disappointment. Every one of God's people is precious. Rabbi Shimon eventually learned his lesson. He came to see that the world needed not to be filled with Torah study, but to be filled with balance. He also realized that he had underestimated his fellow Jews. When he came out of the cave a second time, he saw an old man gathering not one, but 2 bunches of myrtles. Though one would have been sufficient, the old man wanted 2 for Shabbat commandments. To honor both of those commandments, keep Shabbat and remember Shabbat. Following this morning's tragedy, we can learn the same lessons, that destruction is always decried and mourned by God, and that the Jewish world is in balance only when we learn to see the gifts that each Jew brings to the covenant. For some, it is bringing the values of Torah to the everyday world, and for others, it is the study of Torah for its own sake. At this time, we mourn the destruction of 45 lives, and we strive to see the gifts our fellow Jews bring to the covenant. In a moment, we will offer the words of the Kaddish, but we also connect with Aaron and the silence that he brings. Immediately following the Kaddish, Cantor Tillam will lead us in singing Ani Ma'amin, which many of the celebrants at Mount Meron were singing just before the catastrophe began. It translates to, I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, and though he may tarry, still I believe. We turn now to the Kaddish, page 598 in Mishkan Tefillah. Please rise for the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'izman kariv, v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivorach leolam ulalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim Elenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom Elenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say amen. Please be seated.
Ani
At this time, it is my pleasure to call upon Marty Bresnick, a member of our Board of Trustees, to offer the greetings and Shabbat announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Shabbat Evening Service on live stream. Next weekend, we will honor our religious school teachers at our family Shabbat service on live stream. As part of the celebration, guest author Sigal Samuel will read her new book, Osnat and Her Dove. That's Friday, May 7th at 7:30 p.m. In 2 weeks, please join us via Zoom when we celebrate Temple Emeth's milestone members at a special Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday, May 14th at 5:45 p.m. Then, on Sunday, May 16, we'll welcome the holiday of Shavuot, while we honor this year's confirmation class. That's at 7:45 on live stream. 7:45 p.m. on live stream. Biachad hosts their next breakfast on Zoom Sunday, May 23rd at 10:30 a.m. Andrea Strongwater, a distinguished artist, will present Lost Synagogues of Europe. Her project, which documents 83 synagogues across Europe that were destroyed during the Third Reich. She'll discuss several of the synagogues in detail and describe the communities that built each building. Thank you to tonight's volunteers in the live stream control booth. Pauline Hecht, Gail Turner, and Meredith Alvaro are at the controls this evening. Please remember to keep the weekly email you received on Thursday in your mail inbox all week long. It has the login codes for all of the week's Zoom programming. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Marty. I'll add just one more announcement, which is if you get the Jewish Standard, you should definitely take a look at the issue that arrived in your mailbox yesterday or today, because Temple Emeth photographer Barbara Balkin and her project of pandemic portraits is featured in the Jewish Standard this week. It's also available online, but if you get the print edition, it's certainly worth picking up. Turn just a few pages in, and you will see a beautiful spread and a wonderful story about Barbara and this project that brought so much meaning during these difficult times of the pandemic. So Yasher Koach, Barbara. You have just another moment before we conclude our service to post in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. We hope you'll take an opportunity to offer a greeting or wish someone Shabbat Shalom. And speaking of that, our service is now drawing to a close, and so we invite you, as we conclude our service, to turn to someone else in the room if you're sharing your Mikdash Ma'at, your miniature sacred space, with someone. Otherwise, wish them across the internet a wonderful Shabbat as we conclude our service by saying Shabbat Shalom.